Yeah, I'm glad that wasn't on the camera. That's probably not something I should do. Close to the metal. I did it anyway. Hello, everyone who is tuning in right now. This is Close to the Metal, our weekly show where we discuss more in-depth computing aspects, and we go kind of in deep with some topics. And we do this every week, every Wednesday at 10 a.m. And today we're going to be talking about the Intel Developer Conference, the Intel Developer Forum that is happening right now in San Francisco, and some specific things that they announced that are coming out with that. I'm your host, Greg Nibbler. Let's go through here and see who we've got on the show today. To my right,
I'm Brad Burke.
You are Brad Burke. Brad, let's see your metal face. Okay, there we go. That's good. We do have new metal music if you are watching right now. That introed the show. And on the end, a special guest this week.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay.
Hello,
I'm not
Nick.
normally on the show, but I'm pleased to be here.
Excellent.
Subbing in, I think, for Matt Smith, who is our man on the ground.
Yeah, he is down there right now.
IDF.
Yeah, IDF for short.
I was actually confused. I thought we were going to discuss the Israeli Defense Forces on this. I had a whole political spiel prepared, and now we're talking about chips.
And now it's just awkward. Well, maybe we can get into that at the end. We'll take questions. If you have questions about the IDF, just go ahead and drop those in there. But no, so the Intel Developers Forum, it happens every year. They usually, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, tend to be a little bit dry. Is that a safe way to say that? Is that a nice way to put it? But this year, they definitely have brought out some exciting things. Some different things that we haven't seen from Intel before, showing kind of where they want to go. And one of the big things is clearly, we'll just jump right into this. Well, maybe before we even get there, just a little backstory on the Intel Developers Forum. Like, what do we normally expect from this, Brad?
It's kind of weird, right? Because it's sort of like seeing a commercial for like a plastic company or something. Like Intel, people aren't out there buying Intel chips unless they're like computer enthusiasts. They're just buying computers that have these chips.
Yeah.
But they're everywhere. And so these developer forums, unlike I think some others which tend to announce like new features and new, projects they're working on, a lot of this tends to be partnerships they're announcing, concepts they're working on, and especially standards. They tend to announce like this is, some standard we're working on that we want people to achieve, or some minimum spec that we hope computers are going to hit. So it tends to be a lot of that, like bringing other teams out on stage. They had like yesterday the Grush, which is like a gaming toothbrush. Ooh. Where it like tracks the movement of the brush, and the kid has to like try and brush away all the little things on the screen as they're. So it's just all kinds of weird stuff. Anything that uses Intel's chips.
Okay. All right. So that's kind of what we're normally used to. Like I said, a little bit dry sometimes. But this, though, one of the big things that they did talk about yesterday has to do with a step into virtual reality. And the way what they're showing, it's called Project Alloy. We're going to go in depth with it. And if you have questions, if you're watching live, please drop those in there, and we'll get to those as we go through. But maybe we can get just kind of a brief update as far as what they were talking about with this, what Project Alloy is, and where it is they see virtual reality going and how they want to be a part of it.
Well, one of the big problems I think with virtual reality right now when you talk to people about setting it up or getting one is that there's a lot of setup involved. You have to have a computer that can run a Rift or a Vive. You've got to put up sensors. You've got to plot out your area. And it's something, there's wires running everywhere. It's not like a totally clean solution. And I think that's something really people want out of it. So this is supposed to say, like, you can do an all-in-one headset that is strong. And, it's the Gear VR, like, we've used those a lot, and we really like them. But the latency and the resolution are not at all what you experience with the Vive or the Rift.
But with the one thing with the Gear, it is standalone.
Yeah.
So you don't have to be tethered to anything.
Exactly.
I mean, the Vive is awesome. The Vive is pretty incredible as far as, we've tried it out here.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it is. You're right. It's so many components to make that work. To even really utilize that at home, you'd have to separate like an entire room just for it.
Absolutely.
Our kitchen is a testament to the mess that occurs when you have to have that set up. I mean, there's a laptop in there. There's the tripods with the tracking stations on them. Yeah. There's 14 feet of cable or however long it is, kind of just dangling all over the place.
Yeah.
It is a mess. I love the system, but I
but
can see what they're trying to alleviate here.
Yeah, it's really not that convenient to use at home. I mean, you'd have to have a lot of space to really utilize something like that. But that's what the Intel is talking about with this Project Alloy, is trying to make that something that's more a utility program or system that you can use.
And a big part of that is what they call, or what most people refer to as inside-out tracking.
Okay.
So instead of using external trackers, in the case of the Vive, it blasts lasers across an area that the headset reads. In the case of the Rift, it has emitters that the camera reads. And in this case, it's got 2 RealSense cameras, and we've seen those before. They're really cool. They have like a depth sensor, and they're able to sort of figure out how far away you are from things and map structures. And by putting 2 of them on the outside of the headset, you're actually able to track in 6 degrees where somebody is in a space.
Yeah, let's talk about the RealSense cameras. So what exactly are those?
And I believe, I'm not exactly sure on the actual technical part of it, but I know that there's an imaging sensor and an IR, I believe, depth sensing. So it's able to pick up both, shapes as well as images and sort of map them together. It's what enables Windows Hello, which we think is really cool on systems that have it, where it really it sees your face right away and it logs you in.
Yeah.
And it's good enough that it's able to, determine between twins. They were finding
oh wow,
it's able to know which twin is which and say you don't have access to this computer.
Damn.
So
okay.
I don't know if this is right or not, but I tend to think of RealSense as a tinier version of Kinect.
Yeah.
It's doing that sort of stereoscopic mapping of 3D stuff in front of it, and there is an optical layer there too, but there's also a lot of depth behind that.
Okay.
Which makes sense to me how when you put that in a VR headset, suddenly it's not just seeing the room, it's actually mapping it and knowing how far away things are.
Yeah, depth perception, everything is added into that.
Which is pretty damn impressive, actually. Did they talk at all about what is actually powering these things? What processor is in there?
No, they really didn't. And I imagine it's something like a NUC, determining just based off the size of their demo unit they brought out.
They're pretty. It was pretty chunky.
Yeah, it seems like that's we have a NUC. I could have grabbed it, I guess, but it's they range from this big to you can't really see this, but they're pretty small. And I think the components would fit in a headset if Intel was able to chop them up correctly.
I mean, and that's the thing. That is pretty impressive to put all of that into a headset. But yeah, you got to wonder what is powering it. What is a battery life on something like that? I can't imagine that it's too long.
No.
They're going to be able to use this for very long.
Well, I don't know that the battery pack around the back, even on that picture, looks like it could be
even
hazard a guess 8,000. 10,000 mAh, and that's probably enough to power the thing for 30 minutes, maybe.
Okay.
I mean, depending. I mean, there's so many factors that's just kind of a guess based on how it looks.
Right.
But I will say that it has a very similar design to the PSVR headset, and despite that one is also pretty heavy, and it's very comfortable because of the way it sort of sits on your head. That there's sort of a separate part that puts tension, so that the other pieces are kind of just dangling there. I don't know. It's a very the PSVR headset's kind of odd, but it works. It's very comfortable.
I feel like that's a lot of stuff that's still being worked out with this, making it comfortable. You can put the technology in there, but yeah, is it going to be actually something you want to wear for a continuing amount of time? So with Project Alloy, what do you think is Intel's goal with this? Where are they going to take this? Is this something we're going to see on the market?
So Matt actually had a great op-ed this morning about that, which is that we're not. His point was that we're not going to see an Intel VR headset. We're not going to have a choice between an HTC Vive, Oculus Rift, and Intel's whatever the hell they would call this. His point is that this stuff is they're showing it off to try to get those companies to build it in. That's what Intel does.
Yeah.
I mean, you're just talking about what the developer forum is about, partnerships and technologies that we're going to see in other products. And so his point was that, Intel isn't necessarily going to be another competitor. They're going to power the existing competitors and bring them to the next level.
So they're hoping that Rift or whoever, Vive or somebody wants to buy this from them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, that was Matt's point, and I would certainly agree with that. I don't think that Intel is going to be another, a third horse in this race. They're going to be. They want to sell the solution to the existing players.
Well, and they said it's going open source too later this year, so it's not even about selling the project as much as they're just going to put the design and the specification out there and let other companies build it in the same way they did. He mentions in the article the compute stick. It wasn't like they were charging people for that. They just said hey, here's this thing we built, and if you want to buy the chips, feel free.
Presumably, when they put that out there, it's hey, here we have this capability. All you need to do is buy this Intel hardware to enable it in your headset, and cha-ching.
Yeah. And I do hope, I hope as someone who likes to tinker and do DIY things, I hope that they do put out a chip and say hey, $150 buys you the control chip, and then you just got to find a screen and a battery, and you can make your own. That's kind of the other advantage of open source. Make your own VR headset?
It'd
be pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess that would be pretty awesome. That's not something I would want to do. So I'm more of a buy it and then use it kind of person. But Brad, you would know how to do that.
Maybe.
Yeah. I'm sure you could figure it out. So what else with this? What else do you think is exciting that they're bringing to the table here?
Well, one thing that we talked about Project Alloy, it's mapping the room around you, so you don't have to have these control stations anymore. But one cool aspect about it that I think is kind of game changing too is that you can, it's sensing your hands and other objects around the room that you can suddenly interact with. Real objects, you can use them to manipulate VR space. I think they showed like somebody using a dollar bill to
it was like a lathe in the game, and he was like shaving off the sides of a thing.
I mean, I think that's awesome. It's one thing to be able to track them around you, but suddenly to be able to interact with things in the room that are not
life.
They're real life objects. They're not like props constructed for VR. They're something that you're repurposing to interact with the VR environment. There's all sorts of stuff that you could do with that. Like the possibilities of that are crazy.
Yeah, and especially we talked about control methods as far as the Rift and Vive go, that the controllers that you use with the Vive, the touch controllers, are so immersive. And, I've played with the Oculus Touch, and it does the same effect. But having played with Elite Motion before, when you can put your hands out in front of your face and see them and move your fingers, and that adds like a whole nother level of immersion even beyond what those controllers offer. And I think this is kind of proof positive that that's a viable solution, and one that it's easier. Again, like it's less components. It's just tracking your hands. There's no more. There's no extra trackers. There's no controllers to charge or plug in. It's just like there are your hands, and you touch the thing you want.
Right. Because ultimately, I don't think we want to have like a chest of VR props. Like there's like a bunch of stuff that you have to keep around for different games. Like ultimately that's not going to work, but if you can just repurpose a mug or a dollar bill or whatever to be something in a game.
It's a gun in this game. It's something. It's a controller. It's a gear stick. I mean, it sounds a lot more like they really want to mix the AR and the VR and make it more of a one cohesive kind of thing. I mean, because Microsoft HoloLens, they're going to overlay stuff over everything else, which is cool in its own aspect. VR versus completely immersive. This really is just a mix.
Yeah, and this is actually designed, I believe, to run Microsoft Holographic.
So you'd be able to use both.
That is, you'll be able to use this headset as your Windows Holographic experience.
Well, maybe we should get into that. Let's talk about Windows Holographic. So maybe you can get us like a basic background on what that is.
Well, I don't know. It's mixed reality and a mixed reality operating system, but beyond that, it's still sort of like I haven't gotten a chance to use them. We've had very little hands-on time with the platform and with the hardware. But from my understanding, it overlays holograms in a small space in front of your headset. So you wear this visor, and it shows you, it can overlay information on it or put a screen on the wall. And it has some of these same tracking, depth sensing things. So it knows where the walls are and where the furniture is as you move around.
We also know from the demo video it comes with a VR puppy that will come and pester you while you work. Which is apparently what people want.
People want to be pestered by a fake puppy. All right, that's interesting. But so this is their system, and it's going to work with HoloLens, or it's completely separate from HoloLens.
HoloLens, I believe, is a standalone, whereas I'm not really. It's not really clear.
Right. But what we kind of can guess.
But the idea with Project Alloy is that it's a way to provide a hardware solution for Windows Holographic. Because right now, all you can do is either spend $3,000 on a HoloLens dev kit if they approve you, or you can buy an HTC Vive, and when the operating system comes out, they've said that will work with it. But that seems a little clunky, I think, to have like trackers for your workspace and be sitting at a desk with like trackers everywhere. And
somebody bringing that into work every day, so they can no, trust me, it's more efficient when you do this. Just clear out a 20 by 20 space.
The real best part will be when people start bringing them to Starbucks to do their freelance work. Instead of like cracking open a laptop in the corner, you've set up this VR rig and you're just swiping, knocking over things.
There will be that guy.
That will happen.
Oh yeah, there will be that person in the airport too.
That guy might be me at some point.
Well, but it is an interesting question. Like when everyone, we've got a bullpen out there, and if everyone in the editorial bullpen doesn't have screens or computers, they just have a headset sitting at their desk. The office looks totally different. It's kind of almost weird, like
a little bit dystopian, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Like nothing on the walls because everyone's just like putting Netflix everywhere and like playing Pokemon and shit. Like
that is, oh my god, that is the most dystopian image I can imagine.
Just walking around the halls,
a bunch of people sitting in our bullpen out there with VR headsets. Nobody has anything on their desks because they all have their little VR adornments that they keep. That's like their Facebook photos on their desk. Oh my god, yeah, that looks. On the plus side though, we could get some really cheap office space. We could just rent an office.
That's true.
We could rent a warehouse.
Yeah,
and that's it. Yeah,
a warehouse with a bunch of chairs.
We could stack people on different layers.
It's just like you're on a beach. It's fine. Like I don't even have coworkers.
It's gonna turn up the heat and let that be your beach simulator.
It's just efficient. So, all right. Well, with the holographic. So back to that, because that is a fascinating concept that they're working on. So you brought up the NUC. The Skull Canyon. That is what, in theory, could be running it? Is this something
so it's hard to say, like the Vive and the Rift require such a strong computer. They require a lot of heft in order to run those headsets. And I think the idea here is to bring this to more people. You're not running games, so the requirements are much lower. And, even though we actually reviewed the NUC that they showed off as like, here's a system that could show it,
the Skull Canyon
NUC, which is like their gaming device. And it's to say it's like a gaming computer is a bit of a stretch, which says good things, I think, about the Windows holographic as that being a requirement. Though, like if you have a system that's got a decent integrated processor or integrated graphics chip, you'll probably be able to run it.
So, yeah, I mean, the Skull Canyon NUC, honestly, what is that generally for? I mean, just the very basic level. Why would you buy
I think
this?
most people use these as it's like the Windows equivalent of a Mac Mini, I guess.
Okay.
It's a small system. It's all enclosed. It comes with. It doesn't come with a hard drive or memory, so you have to buy those on your own. But its performance is pretty good considering its size. The price isn't so great, but it's really small. Like you can literally stick that thing on the back of a monitor, or tuck it into your home theater or whatever. So they're pretty neat, I think.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't we have some major problems with our review unit of one of these?
This one wasn't able to run a couple of our games in our test suite because they advertised it as this gaming. It's like you could actually game on this.
And it kind of fell flat on that a little bit.
It did,
right?
yeah. It wasn't actually able to game that well. It plays like Counter-Strike, but every computer on the planet plays Counter-Strike. It didn't. Fallout 4, it had some issues. I think just because the drivers aren't set up for it. A lot of games, modern games, really just say like you can't run on an Intel chip, and they don't provide driver support. They don't provide that kind of thing. So when Fallout 4 actually loaded up, it was just like jagged polygons going every which direction.
Just a mess.
It was totally unplayable.
What is the price of this?
I think it's like $650 without again hard drive or memory.
So I'm just struggling to see why you would even bother going this route. If it's $650, but you still don't have a hard drive, you don't have anything else that you need to play a game.
That's sort of the issue.
And then it doesn't even really play games that well anyway.
But if you need a system that is that small, it's just the only way to go. Like you can't get a Windows, like you can get a compute stick, but this thing blows a compute stick's performance out of the water.
Okay.
If you're not playing games and you need like a little desktop, this is,
So I would like one of these as a home theater PC.
That'd be a good use for
because I have the first generation compute stick. I just kind of stole from the closet and I've been using it at home. And
want me to cut that out of the podcast?
We're not going to put that. And it sucks. It is just for the most basic desktop things. Awful. Like it's just on the brink of usable. Even like streaming from Amazon, if I have like anything other than one tab open, it's choking.
Wow.
So like something like this, it's a little bit more powerful, but I could still just like hide behind my TV and not even know it's there.
Yeah.
And maybe even do some like light gaming on would be awesome.
Right. But I think the problem is that, especially with this one, not to get too off topic, but it's that an i5 would probably suit those needs just as well.
Right.
The real thing with the compute stick is it uses an Atom processor, which we've all but stopped reviewing computers with Atom processors because we did find that like for everyday use, they just don't work. Even a Core i3 is going to be much better. So
Skull Canyon would really be overkill for my
yeah, exactly. And for
streaming
$250,
Amazon Prime without hiccups.
Yeah.
Purposes.
Yeah, $650 for that might be overspending on it. I don't know.
But it has a skull on it, man.
It does have a skull on it.
Pretty
That's
sweet
true.
skull.
So I don't know what that's worth to you, but I'm saving my
For
pennies.
the skull motif of my theater room.
I do wish it had some LEDs though, some glowing red LEDs.
That's true.
in
It
the
does need
eyes,
that. Maybe you can paint that in on your own.
Yeah.
Put some glitter on it or something. I don't know.
It'll be my
Maybe
mod.
Yeah.
So
there you
people
go.
know I'm cool.
So that's the Skull Canyon NUC. So what else did they bring out about this? And again, if you're just joining in, we're talking about the Intel Developer Conference Forum. I keep saying conference forum, and we were going through Project Alloy. Now talking about the Skull Canyon NUC. Scanyon is what the fans call it. That's where I was going with that. I was trying to cover it up. Anyway, Brad, what else do we have on that?
The other thing about Windows Holographic is they announced this when they announced Windows 10. They were sort of like, look at this thing. It's so cool. Maybe this will happen someday. Here's the HoloLens. And they announced that it is actually coming to desktops next year.
Okay.
So yeah, like
That's
they didn't give
surprising.
a specific date, but it is like next year people will be able to download this. Which actually, considering how quickly we've been getting insider builds, I would say we might see an initial some kind of limited version of that before the end of the year or at the beginning of next year. We might start seeing like sort of the first
Here at
vestiges
Digital
of-
Trends.
Well, anyone who's a Windows insider in the fast
Yeah.
lane, they just those updates. I think we were like using the anniversary update or most of the features within like a month and a half of that coming out. So I have a feeling this could be out in the open really early, which would be cool because we have a Vive here and I'd love to try it out.
So I love the idea of it. One of the things that I still wonder about, and the little teaser video still didn't really answer for me, is like input. Because it shows, I think, a woman with like some sort of weird remote that she's just kind of holding and like sort of like zapping at things. And it's like, okay, maybe to open a window or to press a button, but how am I working in Excel or something?
It's,
Yeah.
From what I've heard, it is also hand tracked. It has hand motions, so you
So,
can reach out and touch and make
What
gestures.
about typing though? How am I putting in like lots of text?
That's always like I think a hiccup with this, and especially even with VR headsets, you can't really like. A lot of people don't know their keyboard well enough to like play a game with it. But I think for a lot of people who do type a lot of hundreds or thousands of words a day, nothing virtual is going to hold up to using an actual keyboard. I think
Right.
there's still going to be a big place for that.
Even if it's just a piece of cardboard or something.
Well, I think it's got to have
press
that feedback.
against.
Have you ever used?
It's got to have.
They have these things you can get that's a little laser projector, and you can put it down and it
Yeah.
like projects a keyboard out. And if you've ever used those, they work somewhat okay. Like they usually aren't too bad, but the lack of tactile feedback is very odd.
Yeah,
That
I
you're
bet
just
that
like sort
messes
of
with
like going like that on a table, and it doesn't feel right, and you can't keep track of the keys.
Well, then looking at it that way from a functionality standpoint, I mean, yeah, you get to scroll through Facebook and look at your pictures or whatever you want to do. That's easy clicking, play some games. But yeah, what else could you use it for other than that? If you're not going to be able to actually functionally input things and really go in depth.
I think you would. I think it's almost like a monitor replacement.
Okay.
That it's like
It's
I might
a really big
have a
monitor.
keyboard and mouse still, but like now I don't just have one screen in front of me. I can like turn and I have screens all over the
Right.
place.
Yeah.
And
I mean, it seems like it would work all right for like web browsing. I mean, you're not
Yeah.
putting in a ton of text, and I could even see if you pair it with some decent voice recognition.
That's
for
a good point.
basic search terms and just like really simple functions. Like I think it would work all right for that. But I'm just thinking like as a work environment, like what we do
Right.
with working a lot with Microsoft Word and parsing things out and doing a lot of typing, which a lot of people, whether they're journalists or not, are working a lot in the Office suite. I don't know. It'd be hard to get by without a keyboard.
Yeah. Well, and even searching, do you want 35 people all yelling out their search terms like, all at once?
see everyone swinging their arms and shouting all the time. Workplace of the future.
You would know when people are getting off track.
Bagels nearby. Bagels nearby.
I remember one time at CES in the press room, I think it was maybe the year before you came with us, they had set up an Xbox demo when they first started doing like the voice recognition stuff for the Xbox.
Yeah.
And they had set it up right in the press room where everyone was working. And there was a guy there like 10 hours a day just like shouting at the Xbox, and it still wasn't that great. So it was always like Xbox on. And you could just see the angry glares of like just tables of journalists staring up,
All
like,
stressed
why
out
do they
and
do
tired.
this?
Like, oh my God.
And this guy is just like, the presenter has to like keep shouting at the Xbox to make it do what it's supposed to do. There was the worst possible product placement for Microsoft that year to be like just pissing off all the people.
I hate Xbox. Just a stream of
Xbox
terrible
on.
articles about
Xbox on.
I used to do the opposite to my friend. He would be in their house. You'd walk in, and there was like a weird half door, and he would be watching Netflix, and I'd go, Xbox off. Yes. And he'd be like yelling to try and get it to stop. He'd be like in the middle of the game, and it would just turn off the Xbox.
All right, now I'm interested. Now that's awesome. That's a good idea. Okay, a couple of questions here. Looks like we kind of covered the the Intel HD graphics. Kind of talked about that. Another thing for them to get more private stuff on people and to spy on us. What do you think? I suppose.
I don't think they're getting any more
I don't think-
information
yeah.
about your surroundings through. I mean, maybe they could be like mapping the world around you and
Yeah.
like developing sort of like an actual physical map of everything. But
Mapping
Suddenly
your
you're
living
looking
that seems a little like
You're looking
tinfoil
on like
hatty.
Google Maps, and instead of Street View, it just has the entire like inside of your house map.
Yeah.
Everywhere
Wait,
we've
how did
walked
that
to.
happen? How did Street View get in my house?
Could you like, if you had one of those and you like put, a HoloLens and you put something somewhere, could you like lose it in your house? Could you like accidentally leave Netflix playing in like your kitchen and go to bed and then like hear a noise? I was like, what is that? And then like have to put your headset on and walk around the house like in the middle of the night, like trying to find Netflix. Like, there it is. Like,
Gotta close that tab.
Yeah. Left a cat video playing in the backyard and meowing all night.
If you have any other questions, feel free to add those in there too here on YouTube as we're going. So, what else have we seen from the forum today, or just over the last couple of days? Anything else that's of interest? So far we've covered Project Alloy, Windows Holographic, and the Skull Canyon NUC.
There was a little bit at the end. They kind of teased their new Kaby Lake chips. So they switched. Maybe a little background. They switched from using what they call a TikTok, where they do an architecture design and then they shrink it, and then they do an architecture design and then they shrink it.
Gotcha.
And it sort of went back and forth like this. They stopped doing that, so they've sort of extended their new processors to like there's an architecture and then a shrink, and then they redo the shrink and like kind of make it a little better, and then they move to the next architecture. And so right now we're in this place where they're about to shrink it, and we've got this sort of refresh coming out in the form of Kaby Lake. And I don't know if those chips will actually be chips that people will be able to buy and put in their hands. So this is sort of, it's not really clear if they're processors that will just be in laptops and pre-built systems, or if you'll actually be able to buy, a Kaby Lake 770 something and put it in your computer at home. But they did show them off, and they showed like, hey, integrated graphics are playing Overwatch, which is interesting. Overwatch, the sort of the caveat there is that they were playing on a 4K screen, but Overwatch lets you change the internal resolution for like what you render it at. So we were not able to get Overwatch to run at 1080p on any Intel integrated graphics, at least smoothly. It didn't hit like really even 30 frames per second.
Right.
So entirely possible they these things can play at 720p or something. That would be a noticeable improvement.
Okay, so we could see that.
See that.
What else? Anything else from today? I know something about. Taking a look at some of the notes, and like we said, sometimes these Intel developer forums, they're a little dry. We talked about this at the beginning.
They're also they're looking so far out in a lot of cases that it really they're
It's
sort
hard
of
to
like,
speculate.
look, this chip is in a computer and it's going to be in computers maybe this year. I don't know. We sent it to Dell and they have it. It's sort of like this.
Yeah,
Guess maybe someday chips.
if somebody buys it, then maybe
exactly.
you'll see it. So it's a giant showcase of their products, just to see who's going to buy it. That's essentially what we're looking at. All right. Well, anything else that you're looking forward to, or that you're expecting or hoping to see? Nothing.
I was very excited for the Project Alloy. That was
Yeah.
like a pleasant
And
surprise.
I
I was sort
think-
of thinking, some architecture stuff, and maybe they extend their roadmap. But this is cool.
Yeah, Project Alloy was pretty exciting. I did not expect anything nearly that big to come out of IDF this year. Just, again, expected the normal routine stuff, and it's like, oh, actually, they're embracing VR big time.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is a huge boost. I mean, if they're doing this, and you would have to think that companies like Rift and Vive and HTC and all those are looking at this as a viable thing to possibly pick up. If you can make it standalone like that and really incorporate all of that into it, it's pretty exciting. And the fact that it's already this far along, that there's a possibility we could see it in the near future, if somebody does decide to pick it up, I would think it's a pretty exciting development.
It makes me happy that I have not bought a VR headset yet.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, oh, well, I definitely want the one that does that. That's coming in like.
But that's the
18
problem, though.
months.
It's all going to be like that.
Yeah,
like every 6
yeah.
months, there's going to be some new. Ooh, yeah, I'm going to hold off. Oh, but now there's this.
It's kind of a big one though to have the RealSense cameras
And
I
the
don't know.
wireless.
Yeah,
Although I think
wireless.
the next thing after that, they showed off at the NVIDIA's GPU Technology Conference this pretty cool tech, not to get too off track again, that was one screen behind a series of tiny micro mirrors. And what it does is it doesn't very high resolution, but it renders not just, when you look at a VR image, it doesn't change like how blurry it is, which your eyes do. If I look at you, the thing behind you is
There's
blurry.
no focal depth.
Yeah, and this thing actually tricks your eyes into seeing real focal depth.
Whoa.
So if you
Wow.
look at one end of the car, the end of the car that's at the back actually becomes blurry, and you actually
crazy.
see that depth. And they just don't know how to make it higher resolution because it's like, 128 images repeated over and over with a bunch of mirrors in front of them.
That's nuts.
It's pretty cool.
Wow.
So I think that's after wireless. If you're wondering,
That I
so
can-
it'll just keep coming.
I can take or leave that, but I need the wireless and the RealSense cameras that can map my house.
Yeah.
So you just walk around and use it all the time.
Yes. Just never want to take it off.
We just need the implants that go right in your temporal lobe, and then
Works
yeah,
for
you're
me.
done. Yeah. Then that's what we're looking for.
We're on our way.
Yeah, we're getting there. All right. Well, there we go. This is just kind of talking about the Intel Developer Forum, and as we said, we do this show every Wednesday at 10 a.m. here on YouTube and on digitaltrends.com, and then it's available as an audio podcast afterward. And everything we've talked about today, there are in-depth articles at digitaltrends.com that you can go and take a look at and get in there. As we said, Matt Smith's got a great op-ed on there, and there's going to be more info. Whatever comes out of the rest of the forum, we'll have it all right there that you can check out. And let us know if you have any questions or topics you think that we should get into for next week. That was weird. Okay, a train going right as I'm talking about this. And let us know if you have anything that you want us to cover. And tune in, share the show, let your friends know. We'll be back next week with another episode.